Did you get your, did you take your MCAT after you finish 4 year, or can you take it before 4 year?
Very good question. So the question is the MCAT exam. What is the MCAT exam? So the MCAT exam is the medical entrance examination. So before you get into medical school, you have to take the MCAT. And it is one of the criteria of acceptance. So you have to take it before you get in. And then furthermore, they use it as a screening tool. So the higher that you get on this MCAT exam, the better chance you have of getting in to medical school. So the question was, when did I take it? So I took the MCAT exam in my junior year. So that is between, if you go to college for 4 years, that's between your third and your fourth year. So what I did is I took the MCAT exam, I did fairly well, I applied to medical school, and so that I got into medical school in my senior year. So I got into medical school in, kind of the January, February time frame. And so that when I graduated in June, I went on to medical school. Now, does everybody take it? Would I recommend that? Well, I would say that if you have all of your requirements in place, all of your ducks have been aligned in a row, things are going well, I would recommend taking that MCAT exam in your junior year. There are always special circumstances. Sometimes people don't decide that they want to become pre-meds until late, and so by the time they get to their senior year, they may not have taken all of the necessary prerequisites, they may have not taken all the necessary classes, and so then sometimes students will take the MCAT exam in their senior year or even after their senior year. What I would say is this. I would say that you only want to take this exam once. I was a teacher for the MCAT exam. After I did well on the exam, I became a teacher for the Princeton Review preparatory course for the MCAT exam, and I did it for 4 years. And from that experience, you only want to take this exam once. So when you do take it, you want to make sure that you're prepared. So I would say, don't take this exam before you're ready. It's not like the SAT, where you can take it a bunch of times, right? This is an exam you only want to take once. So when you do take it, you want to make sure that you've put in the necessary time and preparation before you take that exam, and then go in from there. Good question. Question, yeah?
When did you start studying for the
Great question. So the question was, when did I start studying for the medical entrance examination? So it's interesting. Some people actually take time, in that year, in that junior, senior year, and they don't really take any hard classes. But I told you that I moved from a computer science major to a molecular biology major pretty late in college. And so I still had a lot of classes that I needed to take. So because I knew ahead of time that I was still going to be taking tough classes and having to study for the MCAT, I actually started studying for the MCAT. If you take we had to take the MCAT in April. I started studying for the MCAT in August. So almost, not a year, but probably about 9 to 10 months in advance. Because I knew I would have to balance both of these things. Oftentimes what you see is that when people start studying for the MCAT, they may only study 1 to 2 months. Mind you, I knew that I had to take a lot of classes, so I started way ahead of time. And I also took a preparatory course. I took the Kaplan preparatory course at that time. But I didn't really focus only on the Kaplan preparatory course. I had my own books, and so I started ahead of time. And I just gradually, did a little bit a day, and didn't try to cram it all into 1 to 2 months. And that's a mistake that a lot of students make, is they say, oh, I'm going to study 2 months and I'm going to study hardcore, right? But the problem is that once you have that mindset, you get into that second week, something happens. Life happens. Either you have a boyfriend or a girlfriend and that causes drama, somebody in your family gets sick, you can't plan for those things. And that 1 to 2 months that you thought you were going to really study extremely diligently, now you can't. And you have this exam coming up. So what I would recommend is that make sure that when you do take that exam, several years away, but when you do take the exam, make sure you plan ahead. Good question. Any other questions? Yeah, in the back.
What school did you go to?
So, good question. So, undergraduate, I went to the University of California, San Diego. I went to UCSD. So I'm a hometown boy, just down the road. And for me, as a pre-med, it was a very good school. I was lucky enough to have a mentor who was a biology professor. For those of you who go to UCSD, his name was Dr. Wasserman. And although he wasn't a medical doctor, he had been a professor there for many years. He was my biology teacher, and he provided a lot of guidance for him. He wrote a letter of recommendation, as you'll find. For those of you who are applying to colleges, you know you need to get letters of recommendation. The same thing is true, and probably even more so, when you get into undergraduate and applying to graduate schools. Letters of recommendation are very important. And to have a mentor like that who will go to bat for you. You know, if they may or may not know a particular individual at a particular medical school or a particular graduate school. And if they like you and you have been very respectful and you've had a good interaction with them, they know you well, they'll pick up the phone and make a phone call for you. And so I went to UCSD. I was a pre-med student, and it was a great experience because UCSD has a great biological sciences department. Yeah, question?
How did you pay for their tuition? Did you get more loans than scholarships?
So, good question. So UC San Diego, luckily, is a University of California public school. So if you compare it to a lot of the private schools, it's less expensive. And back then, you guys might cringe, but I think tuition, correct me if I'm wrong, Dad, tuition back then for the whole year was like $4,000 bucks. Yeah, back then it was. And you know, I was lucky enough to get one grant, but the rest of the amount we paid out of pocket. But it wasn't too expensive back then. Now medical school, on the other hand, either public or private, is expensive. My medical school was probably $30,000 every year. And because I had done well on the MCAT, and because I had done well in undergraduate, I got a full scholarship to medical school. And just a little bit into that decision. So I told you that when I was an undergrad and I was preparing for medical school, the counselor said, I don't know if you're going to get into medical school. I got into 3 medical schools. I got into the Morehouse School of Medicine, I got into Indiana University, and I got into Vanderbilt. All right? Vanderbilt is, you know, probably a top 20 medical school. The medical school I went to, the Morehouse School of Medicine, was a historically black college and university. And in terms of rankings, wasn't very well known. Wasn't high up on the list. And so I was faced with a choice, a decision. Should I shoulder all of this debt, take out all these loans, and go to this big name medical school? Or should I, you know, take the scholarship and go to this small school? And I asked them specifically, I want to go to a top residency program. Can I get to this top residency program through your medical school? And they said, absolutely. Here are the list of people who have gotten to Harvard residencies. If you want, you can talk to them. And so once that was clear, I was like, all right, I'm going to go to the Morehouse School of Medicine. And it wasn't a sure thing. I still had to do well. I still had to, you know, fulfill my end of the bargain. And I did. And I went to the Harvard residency program. And in medicine, it matters more where you actually did your residency, more so than where you went to medical school. Medical school is important. And where you went to medical school is important. But when you're actually learning the practice of medicine, it really matters where you actually did your residency.